Hey, g'day legends, and thanks for tuning in. This week's video, we're back on the Detroit Dodge. Gonna go ahead and see what we got to do to get the new Mitsubishi front axle installed into the International chassis. So let's kick things off. We'll get this old axle out, see what we got ahead of us today. Rightio, so first things first, we'll get this thing jacked up, get on some chassis stands, get the weight off the front axle, see if we can rattle them front axle U-bolts off, and yeah, get us lit out of there, right? Alrighty legends, so I've done my usual trick here. I kind of got stuck into this thing off camera. I didn't really know what was going to work. I knew it was out a little bit, but as it turns out, it wasn't out that far, and basically this Mitsubishi axle is bolted straight up to the International leaf springs. They're the International U-bolts. I end up having to use a bit of heat, give them a little bit of a tweak to work with the Mitsubishi axle because the Mitsubishi ones were too short for this leaf pack. So yeah, I end up using the International U-bolts. I'll probably get some new ones, the right length and shape. But yeah, that's all I had for today to get this thing in. But like I say, I've had a massive win. It was an absolute dogfight to get this axle in, so I didn't really want to film it by myself on the jack. It was just an absolute mission to get it in there, but like I say, big win. The axle went straight in essentially, so I am happy with that. Like I say, sorry I didn't film it, but it was just yeah, dog's breakfast getting it in there, and wouldn't have been much to look at anyway. So, but anyway, we can tick that one off the list. What I have moved my attention to, as you can see, the radiator support is on this thing for a good reason. Well, this isn't its radiator support, but it's a radiator support. Because I'm looking at mounting a steering box now, so because the axle went straight in on this thing, obviously I need a bit more for a video for you blokes, and I've got to do more to this thing anyway. So I went and grabbed the steering box and the bracket for this thing, and I've been scratching my head for the last probably hour and a half, 2 hours, how this thing's going to work. I still don't really have a final answer on that, but I'll show you what I got. So this thing is on full lock right, the steering box is on full lock right, and as you can see, yeah, that drag link's too long, and also the steering sort of hanging out the front of the radiator support, so not going to work as is. So a bit of reference, this steering box is out of a cab over Mitsubishi, and obviously this truck is bonneted, so there's going to be a lot of figuring out. Obviously there's probably going to have to be a few separate universals to make the column work and all the rest of it. I went and had a look at that old diesel 4x4 and that D5N out there. And that's where the factory steering box bolts. It actually bolts from the inside, and if you have a look, line of sight, yeah, that column, that steering box ain't gonna work because there's an exhaust manifold right in the road. So before you say anything, yep, nah, the factory steering box is not gonna work on this thing, so we have to do an aftermarket, like something off another truck, and basically we got this with the whole suspension package. So ideally I'd like to make this work so it simplifies everything. Problem with that being is that you can't just obviously put the box willy-nilly. It's got to be where it's got to be. Now I have a truck that I can measure some reference points on. Like I want to get the angle that this box sits at. I've got to get from the center of the truck to where the steering box mounts. I want that dimension. I'm going to get a heap of different measurements to work out where this thing sits, because basically if you don't get the angle lined up, your sweep gets buggered up, and you'll have more steering on one side, less steering on the other, and it'll just be all goofy. So like I say, I'm going to probably head down to my uncle's, that's where the truck is, and start doing a heap of measurements. And I think this box is going to have to come back a bit. I think this top side bracket is going to have to be cut off. As you can see, it's like a right angle bracket. It covers the chassis. So I've got 3 bolt holes down here. So what I'm thinking is that this bracket here is gonna have to be cut off, so it's flush with the chassis rail. Then it's probably gonna have to be laid back a bit to get the right angle. Then when I got the angle right, I'm probably gonna have to make a plate that sits on the top of the chassis rail, drill and bolt it to there, and then it's probably gonna have to be welded to that bracket. But that all remains to be seen. Like I say, I'll know a bit more once I get all the measurements done. So that's the next step in the progress. We'll go and get these measurements, come back, and yeah, we'll start attacking the mount and the steering box, eh? Rightio, legends. So like I said, I've come down here to check out, this is, I think it's the same model FH100 Mitsubishi truck, got the same front suspension, and that steering box looks identical too. So I've started doing some measurements. I want to find the center line of the chassis. So I've gone from the inside of that leaf spring to the inside of this leaf spring here, and it's showing about 740. So half of 740 is 370. So if I hold the tape up here at 370 on the inside of that, that's basically at the center line of the truck. And if I move over here, I can see that the pitman arm is at about 550. So I can work that out on the Dodge to have that pitman arm 550 from the center. And that tells me at what position this drag link should be in and out. And I also had a look at this. So I got the angle of the steering box. The bracket that bolts the steering box is basically 90 degrees to the chassis, and that gives it a slight angle up. So I know that angle now too. You can see that pitman arm, it's straight up and down at straight ahead. And yeah, I've got to, and the drag link is basically level at with the suspension loaded too. So they're the 3 main dimensions, angles that I sort of needed to work out where to situate the box on the Dodge. Like I said, obviously this drag link's going to need to be modified because the box has to sit further back on the Dodge chassis than it does on the Mitsubishi chassis. There's no way of getting around it, because by the time you hang the radio support on it, the steering box would be out the front if we left it that long, so that ain't going to work. But that's not a drama if we can actually get the box situated in every other dimension. Yeah, we'll just modify the drag link to suit. So now that we got those dimensions, yeah, I'll rip back home and see if we're gonna have to modify that bracket quite somewhat to make it all work, but hopefully we can, because that's gonna simplify the install. So I'll rip home and have a play. Rightio, so I'm back home. I've done a lot more looking and measuring and carrying on, and I don't know if this bracket's gonna work. Certainly not gonna work how it is. So I don't know if you can see how this mounting angle, like that's where the box mounts, that's where it mounts on the chassis. It's on the wrong angle, turn the box the wrong way. So I think what I'm gonna do is cut the bottom side of this off and actually cut those ears off. Then I'll mount this bracket to the box itself, and then I'll see if I can bolt that to the chassis and then try and set the box where it needs to be dimensionally, and then see if I can tack it back together, and then cycle the steering, see if that makes sense. But for now, I just got to do a lot of cutting, and that's a thick bracket, and get it all set up, eh? Rightio, legends, I think we've had a bit of a win here. Nothing's permanent yet, but I've cut and shut that bracket. I don't know if you can really tell, but it's tack welded in position. Everything seems to be lining up. Like when it's a neutral, The pitman arm straight up and down. The drag link is level, like the chassis sitting up a bit, but yeah, the drag link is level with the suspension and the chassis. I've run it full circle left to right. Everything seems to be working as it should. There's bugger all clearance on this radiator support, but this is an international radiator support. The Dodge one, I'm pretty sure, has got a bit more clearance, but we're gonna have to test that out once the clip goes back on there, so there may be a bit of modifying yet. But the only thing is that is going to be a bit more work yet is, obviously, you can see the angle of the shaft. It's actually going that way, but that's the way it had to be to make everything else line up. So when this column goes in and the steering shaft, we're gonna have to have multiple universals, obviously, to make it all work, to get it to where it's got to go and to clear the inner guard, exhaust manifold, all that jazz. But I'm pretty happy with it. Obviously, this is all just tack welded together. That'll all get spigoted with a bit of solid bar and all the rest of it done properly, but it's all just sort of tacked into position and mocked up. Like, as you can see, the drag link is running straight as well. So yeah, a lot more happy than I was this morning before I got this started. So yeah, gonna wrap this video up here, legends. Gonna race in and edit it, so hopefully it comes up this Friday. And yeah, appreciate you all watching. If you do us a favor, like, comment, share and subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.